Hello and welcome to part 7 of the Johnny Blender 2.0 series. In this section, I mentioned before that we were going to go and talk about the UV maps and texture maps and things like that. But I would like to go ahead and give him an inside of the mouth. So if he wants to smile, he'll have teeth and things like that. So let's go ahead and save as JB07.blend. Okay, save as. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the visual of the multi-res. Come back into object mode, and since this guy has all the sculpting done to him already, I want to Shift D. I'm going to duplicate him, and you can't see it because it's perfectly aligned with the other one, but if you move it you can see. And I'm going to hit M on my keyboard, and I'm going to move it to this other layer right here. And that corresponds with this one here. You can see a little orange dot there now. That means that there's something in that layer. So I'll go here, and here's the new model. So this one also has the high resolution sculpting on it. If I turn the preview up some, you can see it. But I want to go ahead and delete that. Now let's go back to our first level there and make sure that this one still has everything. And turn that eyeball on so you can see it. So yep, that still has everything. So we're going to just go ahead and turn that back off. Let's go. We're going to leave this one alone, and we'll go into this one here. So, like I said, I want to do the inside of the mouth. And so let's examine this and see what the best approach would be. If we hit 5 on our keyboard, that'll put us in perspective view, and we can actually go through the model and see inside of it. So what we have here is where we've added the seams on there. We can go ahead and grab all that. Actually, what we can do, since we have face mode turned on, we've selected all our seams there, we can hit Control L and it'll select all of the faces that are inside those seams. So let's go ahead and extrude that out some, scale it up. And this is going to be the mouth, the oral cavity. Extrude that in some more, maybe a little bit more. And then maybe we'll scale it up. You know what I'm going to do? Just so this will go a lot smoother, I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half again. So we'll be using the mirror modifier like we did before. Let's pop back. Okay, we make sure we're in the flat view, orthographic as it's called. So I just held down B, click and drag across here, and I'm going to select right beside that center line and just release. And then let's go in here and make sure everything on that side is selected. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those vertices now. You can see we have half the face there. And we'll go ahead and add the mirror back to it. Okay. And go ahead and on our subsurface, let's go ahead and turn that on. And turn it on in the editing mode. And go ahead and turn on the apply modifier to editing cage during edit mode. So it'll smooth it up and you can see it. And then we can also turn it on the mirror, and it will, and then we can see the wireframe on both sides. And one thing you might notice when you do this is now it seems like the center of our model, if we tab out, has a crease down the middle of it, and we don't want that because it's not supposed to be there. So what we got to do is go over here in our stack of our modifiers here and bump the mirror. If we scroll this out, we can see the names of them a little better. Bump the mirror up to the top layer, and you can see it got rid of that subdivision, or that crease there. So okay, now tab back in edit mode, working on that mouth here. So let's see, the best way that I always do these actually one way that would be easier for us here is let's do the same thing we did to select the mouth. Go inside, select that, Control L to select all of the new mouth area. And it looks like I need to drag it forward a little bit. So the lip area seems to be a little thick there. And you know what? Let's go ahead and grab this loop here, scale it on the y-axis, a little smaller, and then drag it up. And if we hit O, it's going to turn on this what's called proportional editing. And what that is you can select one vertex, and it kind of has, it influences vertices around it. See, instead of just if it's turned off, you only move that one. But if it's turned on, it moves all around it. So, okay, so I want to make this corner of the mouth a little smaller, and also to increase or decrease the influence of your proportional editing, you just scroll the mouse wheel up and down, as you can see, and it affects that. So we'll get the mouth lined up a little better here. Getting some ugliness right here, so let's clean this up. Okay. You know what, let's go ahead and turn the smoothness off in edit mode. There we go. Because once it's smooth, it's kind of hard to explain it. It doesn't behave properly sometimes, around the center especially. So it's smoothing what you're seeing rather than actually. And I need to turn on that clipping right there. Clipping keeps all that center line glued together. So speaking of, let's grab everything on the center line and make sure it's lined up to where it needs to be. There we go. Okay, back inside. As I mentioned before, let's go ahead and select all these faces here inside the mouth, Control L. And now, if we go select inverse or Control I, it selects everything except for the mouth. And now if we hit H, it's going to hide it. Don't worry, it didn't delete it, it just hid it. And now we have a much better view of our inside of our mouth. A lot easier to work on this way. So let's space this out here and get this to looking like the inside of a mouth. One thing we can do to kind of clean this up some, just select everything here and just W smooth, and just do that a few times, and it'll start smoothing those up where they're not quite as square. And there we go. So now we can see things a little easier. And let's go into top view, 7 on your numpad, and let's start rounding this out like this. Okay, so that's looking a lot better. Okay, now we're not going to do a whole throat and, you know, the whole digestive system through the mouth, but we're going to go ahead and just do the tongue, and we'll do some teeth. So I'll go ahead and do the tongue right there. Just select all those faces there, go back into flat view, orthographic view, and let's turn off the proportional editing now, O on your keyboard, and we'll extrude up, scale it down some, rotate it a little bit, and then we'll extrude again, rotate it a little bit. I'm going to start scaling it down a little bit. Let's get those vertices right there and bring them down more towards the center, and then we'll select these guys and these guys again, and let's extrude again, and one more time, And that'll be our tongue. And we'll need to go ahead and W smooth that up some. And let's go into side view. Let's go ahead and round this tip out a little bit. Okay, front view, and let's go ahead and grab the sides of it. Flatten it out some. And then we'll grab the top center line and drag it down. So it's got the nice indentation there on the top. Okay, let's go into top view. We can kind of see an X-ray view of it through the mesh that covers the top of the mouth. And let's kind of start rounding the tip of that out. Like so. Alright. Okay, so we got a tongue in there. Nice fat tongue. Actually might be too fat, so let's thin it up some. Let's select, while we're in here, let's go ahead and select this loop right here. And X-ray view, see that one. And this here. And we're going to go ahead and add a seam here also. Okay. And then let's add one down the bottom of the tongue as well. So let's go to edge select mode. Select this one, and this one. You can see it kind of coming through the bottom of the mouth, but that's okay. And that one. And we'll Control E, mark a seam there as well. Okay, so now the reason I did that is so I can select just the tongue, just like we did with just the mouth earlier. So I just select one of the faces inside there, and Control L, and it selects the whole tongue. And now I can go into side view and scale it down on the Z-axis there, like so. And let's go ahead and smooth that up just a little bit. There we go. And let's grab this loop here in the middle and just bring it up so it's not quite a flat tongue in there, if you see inside the mouth there. Okay, so that's good. Let's go ahead and save. I like to save as often as possible. Did I save it? There we go. Okay, so now we got to mess with the gums and the teeth. And I'm going to use a little bit different technique than you might have seen me use before, such as on the first Johnny Blender series. I made each tooth individual, which works, but it's kind of hard to texture map those once you get them done. So I got a technique here that's a little bit easier because it doesn't make each separate tooth. It kind of just does one. The teeth look like they're separate, but they're not. So okay, so I'm trying to get a nice horseshoe shape here in which we can extrude the gums through. So let's do this. We kind of got some lines here and here that are good, but this is too big here, so let's add a loop right there, and then we'll select here, 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 and here, and that guy. Okay, and this will be our gums. So if we extrude once, just hit E and then right click out, and we hit S to scale on the Z axis, just hit Z and just move your mouse down. It's going to start bringing those two gums together. Not too much there though. And so it's moderately looking nice gums. If we Alt S, we can scale them down a little bit. S scales proportion, scales everything you have selected towards the center of the selection, like where they would meet. If you scaled them all the way down to 0, that's what just hitting S and scaling it does. And Alt S scales each face along what's called its normals. It's the direction that it's facing. So if you watch, like for example, this face right here, if I hit Alt S, it kind of just scales in on itself. So for making things skinnier or fatter, basically, you use Alt S. And now we'll scale on the Z-axis again to get them a little closer together. And we'll go ahead and add a loop around them. And one up here. There we go. And now we need to go on the top and kind of straighten those out, smooth those out, the edges. It's kind of a squared off horseshoe shape. We don't want any squareness in there at all. Okay, and this part right here. And maybe we'll round them off a little bit more. There we go. And we need to do the bottom. If we hit Control and 7, that'll give us our bottom view. You know, just 7 on your numpad gives you the top, Control 7 gives you the bottom. So let's select these guys and start rounding the bottom gums out as well. Okay. So that'll work, I think. And now, like I said, the teeth themselves. You know what I want to do real quick before I go any further is, you know, in your, excuse me, throat seems to be drying out. Get a drink real quick. Let's see, maybe that'll help. Okay, in your mouth, unless you're blowing air in your cheeks, they don't stick out that far past your gums. So let's go in there and let's get that a little bit more of a snug fit in there. Let's grab all these guys and W, smooth, get those smoothed up. Just keep doing that until it gets a nice smoothness going on there. And that's a little bit better. Still not really where it should be. Now, if this were like a cartoon model that you're making, you could probably get away with not really putting that much detail here in the mouth. But since we're trying to go for a photorealistic, the more detail, the better. So looks like we got some issues with our gums here on the top. Okay. I think that will, for the most part, that'll work. Let's unhide everything real quick. And if I can hit the right button instead of the Windows button, hit Alt. We need to make the inside of the mouth quite a bit bigger to fit the size of the head. So let's go ahead and hide that again. And since we know that this loop right here is the size of our mouth, we need to make the inside of the mouth sized to fit that. So let's select everything inside there. Good. Okay. And we're going to just scale it up. Actually, let's put our 3D cursor right there in the center. Right there on that center line. And change the pivot point to 3D cursor. And now we scale it up. Let's go and drag it back just a little bit. Scale it up. And then maybe down a little some. Maybe on the x-axis a little bit. Okay, so now we Alt-H. Now the inside of the mouth fits the size of the head a little bit better. Okay, so now we're going to select everything in here again. Go to our face select mode, and let's select just X-ray view, just select something inside the mouth there. Make sure you get the tongue. And we don't want this cheek. Okay, so Control L, and it'll select up to that seam, and we'll do the same thing. Control I will invert our selection, and H will hide. So now we've got just our mouth visible again. Let's go ahead and save. I like to save often, as I'm sure you've realized. Blender is awesome, but it is still in beta mode for now. Maybe by the time you watch this, it'll be a nice solid release, but for now it's in beta mode and still has a few bugs here and there. Okay, for right now, I don't really need to be in the edit mode of the head, so I'm going to go ahead and tab out. Let's go over here into an empty area. Insert our 3D cursor. We're going to Shift A, and we're going to add a cube. And tab into edit mode, scale it way down. This is going to be our teeth. And let's drag it over. And I want to subdivide it. So I hit W on my keyboard, and it brings up the specials menu, and I go to subdivide. And let's give it 3 cuts. That might be too many. Let's give it 2 cuts. Okay, and now let's scale it on the y-axis, SY, and then just drag your mouse. And this will be, like I said, this will be our teeth. So we're just kind of sculpting out a tooth, and let's go back to median point around the pivot. And since we're trying to rotate around that, but it's way off screen, so if we hit the period on our numpad, it'll center it in our view, and we can center around it, or rotate around it. So, okay, let's get this to looking like a tooth shape. Maybe scale this a little bit here, and then these guys, and then bring this up some. Okay, let's go into side view, and let's kind of sharpen it up now. Okay, and let's go into top view and kind of round off the edges some too. Scale that on the X. Get these guys here too. There we go. And let's bring the top of it back some, and the sides as well. Okay, so that's a decent looking front tooth. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit more round. There we go. And if we were to add a subdivision surface to it and set the shading to smooth, decent shape. It needs to be a little longer, I think, about like so. Then maybe bring the corners up a little bit. There we go. That's not too bad, huh? Now the trick that I want to do is I want to come in here, and I'm going to select this face right here and this face right here, and I'm going to delete them. Okay, and now let's move, let's go into top view, let's move our model piece here directly over to where it lines up with its center, just on the right side, like so, and bring it down. And now I'm going to tab out, excuse me, and I want to add an array to it. And you can see that it automatically threw another tooth on there. And the higher I make the count, the more teeth it puts. So this is just going to be half again. So what I'm wanting to do is essentially have all the teeth in the mouth, well, all the teeth on the top of the mouth be one model. And that's why I cut the hole in the top of it there, so it can connect to the other teeth in the little array. So to make sure that goes a little bit smoother, I'm going to select all those guys and drag them out a little bit further, and then all of these, and do the same thing. I'm going to select everything, make sure we get it lined up perfectly on that line. Zoom in as close as you can, line it up. There we go. Okay, so excluding the wisdom teeth, I guess the human adult mouth has 28 teeth. 32 teeth if you have the wisdom teeth, but as most people get those pulled, or some people don't have them growing ever at all, I'll just do 28. So we need 7 teeth on this top half, and then the mirror modifier we'll use after a while. We'll put 7 on those sides, so that's 14, and then another 14 on the bottom. It's 28. Okay, so we got 6 there. Make one more. So we'll have, I don't remember the names of all the teeth, the incisors, and then the canine, and then some molars. So okay, so we got all the teeth we need copied in there, and go ahead and select merge, and it connects them together, but it's doing it a little too much. Let's see if distance, there we go. I can adjust the distance of the merge. The default is 0.01, so let's set that to 0.001, see if that helps. And looks like it did. Looks like they're connected there at the top where I designated them to be. Okay, so now if I apply this array modifier, oops, got a tab out of edit mode. Go ahead and apply that. And if I add a mirror modifier now, go ahead and bump that above the subdivision in the stack. This would be the whole top row of teeth, and it is one big model. You can see that these here are connected. Make sure we turn off that so we can make sure. Okay, so this is one big model now. And once we get it embedded in the gums, up to like this line here, it'll look like they're all separate teeth, but it'll be a lot easier to add a texture map to. So since we copied all those, we need to fill in this face here. So if we just get the edge select mode and just select 2 of the faces there across from each other and hit F, it'll go ahead and fill that in. So let's go ahead and start arranging these and adjusting some of them to where it looks more like natural teeth instead of, you know, all the same teeth. So we've got our main front tooth here, which is fine. And let's select, excuse me, throat's getting dry again. Select all these guys and kind of scale them down a little bit. Drag it in there. Okay, and then this will be kind of a little bit sharper type of tooth. And then the old canine. Kind of feeling my teeth with my tongue, make sure I'm doing this in the right order. And then 3 molars. So let's go into top view and select these, oops, these, and let's turn back the proportional editing back on. Ooh, this part's turning into 30 minutes rather than 20 minutes. Let me get this final bit adjusted, and then I'll have to call this part 7 completed, and we might have to continue on with the teeth in part 8. Okay, so let's go ahead and drag those out. Okay. Like I said, I'm running out of time, so let's go ahead and pause it right here. Go ahead and save. And in part 8, we'll finish up the inside of the mouth, and then we'll go on to start the texturing process. So, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 8.